What's up guys, Sean Nalewanyj, SeanNal.com, RealScienceAthletics.com, and in this video today we're doing an Instagram Q&A, answering some non-fitness related questions you guys sent in, just for something a bit different here. If you're not following me over on Instagram, it's at Sean_Nalewanyj. I've really upped my posting frequency there the past few months with new content pretty much every single day, so make sure to follow there as well because when I'm not here on YouTube, that's where you'll find me and you'll definitely get a lot of value from the tips and advice that I share there. So let's get into it. I tried to pick a variety of different questions here. I'll start with a few simple basic ones first and then get into some more detailed and kind of random ones after that. So first up, what is your ethnicity? I get asked this all the time. I was born in Canada, but I'm half Japanese and half Ukrainian. But culturally, I have no real connection to either side because it's my great-grandparents that were born in Japan and my grandparents that were born in the Ukraine. So unfortunately, I don't speak either language and I pretty much just consider myself to be Canadian. I lived in Victoria, BC for most of my life. I moved to Vancouver for a couple of years and lately I've just been kind of traveling around, so I don't actually have a set home base at the moment. The second question, what's your height, weight, and age? For height, I'm somewhere between 5'8.5" and 5'9". I don't know the exact number, so I just go with 5'9" because I'm obviously not going to round down, and I'm not going to say 5'8 3/4" because that's just way too specific. So I just say 5'9" because when I got my DEXA scan, they measured me at 5'9", so that's close enough. Weight-wise, I've pretty much been every weight all over the map throughout the years, from a really lean 160 pounds all the way up to a really not lean at all 230, and a bunch of different weights in between. But my preferred weight over the past probably 8 years or so has been somewhere between about 170 to 175 pounds, and that lands me at around 12 to 14% body fat, which I think gives a good balance between muscle fullness and leanness, but without any of the negative side effects of being too lean. And then for age, I'm 33, but most people who meet me in person usually say I look younger than I am, and a lot of times they guess that I'm in my late 20s, which is probably from the Japanese genes. The third question is beer or liquor. Also, do you pay attention to the Vancouver Canucks? With alcohol, I go in phases. Sometimes I'll go for months on end and barely drink at all when I'm in a more work-focused mode. And then when I'm going through a more social phase, I'll tend to drink more. So right now I do drink socially, probably once or twice a week, but I always try to keep it in moderation, nothing crazy. Usually I'd say 2 or 3 drinks on average. And for me, it's pretty much always liquor, just something clean and simple like vodka soda or a rum and Coke Zero, just to keep the calories down. And I just prefer the taste of those drinks anyway. And then no, as big as hockey is in Canada, I really couldn't care less about the Canucks or even about professional sports in general. I was an athlete growing up, and it was a big part of my life. Baseball, track, and rugby were my main sports, but watching professional sports just doesn't really interest me at all, aside from maybe the odd MMA fight here or there. Okay, have you ever been recognized on the street? Yeah, I'd say probably on average, I have someone come up and talk to me who recognizes me, usually from YouTube, probably every 2 weeks or so, maybe 3 at the most. I remember one time I was actually on a date and I had, just by fluke, 2 different YouTube subscribers stop me on the street within the span of like an hour, and they both wanted to take a picture with me, so that definitely made me look pretty cool in that moment. But yeah, I'd say like every 2 to 3 weeks, roughly on average. What's your favorite genre of music? Probably 90% of what I listen to is electronic music, and I guess progressive house would be the best way to describe it. I just find that kind of music to be really motivating, and it's good for training and for working and for things like that. And then aside from that, probably rap and R&B would be my second choice. What are your hobbies besides fitness? My main focus in life in general right now would be on building my business. So for me, that kind of is my hobby. So expanding things here on YouTube, my blog over at SeanNal.com, social media, particularly Instagram, and also building up the supplement line, Real Science Athletics, and just helping as many people as possible on their fitness journey as I can, because I genuinely do enjoy the whole process of it all. So I have a lot of plans for that over the next few years. So that's really where a huge chunk of my energy goes besides going to the gym. And then I also travel a decent amount too. So just going out and meeting new people in the places that I'm living, that's another big thing for me. And for those who follow me on Instagram, I was in Chiang Mai, Thailand recently for a couple months, and then Tokyo after that. And I'm planning to go to Bali in the next couple of weeks here. And Vietnam and Taiwan are also on my list as well for places that I want to check out. But ultimately, I'm not someone who likes to be doing a bunch of different things at one time. I've always been very goal oriented. And so generally I like to just have one or two main areas of focus in my life. And then I just end up pouring the majority of my time and energy into those areas and try to go really deep on them rather than spreading my attention out too wide. So on a similar note, the next question is, what sources have helped you the most on your entrepreneurship journey? Honestly, I originally started my business without reading a single business book or following any entrepreneurship content for the most part. And that's not a point of pride really, and I'm not necessarily recommending that. I probably should have educated myself more, and I probably should do more of that even now. But I mostly just learned through observation and through modeling. So just looking at people who had achieved a similar result to what I wanted to achieve, and then basically reverse engineering and deconstructing what they were already doing. Not copying their content or anything like that, but just emulating their business methods in terms of like what type of website are they using, how do they market to their email list, what types of products and content are they creating that people seem most interested in. So just observing what's already working and then putting my own twist on it. I never felt the need to be super innovative or to reinvent the wheel when it comes to business. I just figured the systems that work already exist. I can see it in front of my eyes that these people are successful. So if I want to be successful, then I just need to analyze what system they're already using. Okay, next question. Do you have any embarrassing moments in the gym? Nothing too crazy, but one event stands out, which is the time where I got wheeled out of the gym on a stretcher, even though it wasn't even really necessary. I was about 22 or 23, and I was doing deadlifts, but I didn't warm up properly, and my form kind of slipped up toward the end of my set, and I ended up tweaking and kind of throwing out my lower back basically. And if you've ever had the experience of throwing out your lower back really badly and pinching a nerve, then you know how insanely painful that can be. But yeah, the gym staff came up to me and I told them that I'd be fine, but they basically insisted that it was proper protocol for them to call the paramedics, since in that moment I pretty much couldn't even walk. And I was younger and I wasn't really sure what was going on, so I just went along with it. So in the middle of a crowded gym, the ambulance pulls up, paramedics come out, wrap me in a blanket and lay me out on a stretcher and then wheel me out of the gym in front of everyone, which was pretty embarrassing. I had a good sense of humor about it, but yeah, I would say it was still an embarrassing moment for me. So they took me to the hospital, gave me a shot in my lower back for the pain. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but I do remember that it didn't help at all. And I just ended up going home a few hours later, and that was that. And if you have any embarrassing gym moments of your own, then feel free to share them in the comments below, by the way. Next question. What are your thoughts on steroid use? Have you ever considered using them in the past, or would you ever consider using them in the future? I actually did a pretty detailed video discussing this a few years back, but the short answer is that it did briefly cross my mind as sort of like a vague possibility back when I was about 19 or 20, because that was when I was in my full out bodybuilding obsession mode and when I wanted to just be as huge and shredded as I could possibly get. But ultimately I never did, mainly because I was afraid of the possible psychological issues that I thought it could create. In other words, you gain this huge amount of muscle over a really short period, and then that becomes your new physique set point in your mind. And now for as long as you want to maintain that, you're going to have to rely on the drugs. And if you ever decide to stop, you're basically going to lose the majority of the gains. And I just think that mentally that could lead to some serious potential issues, at least for me knowing myself. And I'm really glad that I never did. And fortunately nowadays, I don't even want to have a super muscular, super shredded physique because it just looks a bit too over the top in my opinion. So I'm relatively happy with my physique as is. Obviously there's things I'd like to improve on, but it wouldn't require steroids to get there. So it's just a total non-issue for me now. And I feel pretty confident in saying that even though I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with steroids, because it just depends on the person and their situation and their goals and their values and things like that. But for the majority of people out there, I do think that staying natural is going to be the best long-term route. Next question. When did you lose your virginity? Next question. Do you play any video games and do you think they're a waste of time? I used to play a decent amount of PS3 back in the day, probably like 6 or 7 years ago. I was really big into GTA and Call of Duty there for a while, but I don't play anymore because I eventually found that the amount of time that I was playing was getting excessive and I was actually having issues controlling it. And for me, if I'm having trouble moderating something and it's interfering with other aspects of my life, then I usually just go cold turkey on it and I get rid of it altogether. And I've always found that if you just get rid of certain things altogether, eventually you get used to it and you find that you don't really miss them anymore anyway. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with video games, so if you enjoy them and if you can play them in moderation, for example, at the end of the day, during your downtime, and it's not interfering with more important things, then that's fine. But if it is interfering and you're playing an amount that you can just feel probably isn't healthy for you, then yeah, you might want to make some changes there. And last question, the most difficult one, if you can sum up the meaning of life, what would you say? These are actually some of my favorite types of conversations, and I've always been interested in philosophical topics like this. But in terms of a very general question like the meaning of life, I genuinely couldn't give a good answer to that. To me, life itself is just a total mystery in the grand scheme. I don't know what it is or what the meaning is, or if there even is any sort of meaning outside of the subjective meanings that human beings create for themselves. And I'm also really doubtful about whether or not human brains are even capable of comprehending these sort of big questions. So even though I've spent a lot of years pondering it and trying to find some sort of answer, I'd say at this point, at least right now, I've just learned to be more comfortable with the idea that there are certain things that I really just don't know and probably never will know. I could talk more about my general approach to life in the more practical human sense, like my values and things like that, how I think people should conduct themselves day to day. And maybe that's what the question was actually asking, but that's a very loaded topic, and I have a lot to say on that, so I'll probably save that for another video. So that's the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other questions for me, you can head over to my Instagram at Sean_Nalewanyj, and make sure you're following me there as well for more daily content and other updates. And of course, if you're not subscribed here on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button below to stay up to date on future videos. And the official websites are over at SeanNal.com and RealScienceAthletics.com. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.